When Hollywood legend Morgan Freeman steps onto a live talk show, he expects a thoughtful, respectful conversation. But the host has other plans. Instead of engaging in meaningful dialogue, she fires off intrusive, borderline disrespectful questions. Yet, rather than losing his composure, Freeman responds in a way that leaves the entire audience in awe. His calm yet commanding words shift the entire atmosphere, rendering everyone speechless. This unforgettable moment is yet another reason why Morgan Freeman remains one of the most revered figures in Hollywood. The air in the studio is thick with anticipation. Every seat is taken. Millions watch from their homes, eager to hear the wisdom of the man whose voice has narrated the very essence of life. At 86, Morgan Freeman is as sharp, poised, and respected as ever. He walks onto the stage slowly, his deep, familiar voice greeting the audience. The crowd erupts in applause. Some even wipe away tears. But as he settles into his chair, something feels off. The host, Vanessa Clark, is known for her bold, often ruthless approach. Morgan has done countless interviews, but tonight is different. She leans forward, a smirk playing on her lips. "So, Morgan," she begins, her voice smooth yet cutting. "At your age, do you ever wake up wondering if today might be your last?" The room falls silent. Smiles vanish. Morgan doesn't flinch. He simply folds his hands in his lap and meets her gaze. A storm is brewing, and Vanessa has no clue what she's just set in motion. A murmur ripples through the audience. Some exchange uneasy glances. Others shift in their seats. Vanessa chuckles, as if her words were harmless. Morgan remains motionless. His eyes, deep, wise, knowing, rest on her. But Vanessa isn't finished. "You've played God," she presses, tilting her head. "But let's be real, you're just a man. A very old man. What's it like knowing your time is almost up?" Gasps echo through the studio. An elderly woman in the front row places a hand over her heart. Morgan exhales quietly, shaking his head. He has spent decades in Hollywood. He has witnessed arrogance, cruelty, blatant disrespect. But this is something else. And Vanessa is reveling in it. The camera zooms in on Morgan's face. His expression is impossible to read. But inside, he's thinking, remembering. This isn't just about him anymore. It's about every elderly person watching. Every individual who has been overlooked, dismissed, made to feel like they no longer matter. And so, when he finally speaks, the world listens. Morgan leans in, his hands clasped together. His voice, calm but cutting. "Miss Clark," he says, "have you ever sat beside someone as they took their final breath?" The question sends a chill through the room. Vanessa blinks. She hadn't seen that coming. "Well, she falters. Morgan doesn't let her finish. "I have," he says quietly. "Many times." The room falls into heavy silence. "I have held the hands of dear friends as they spoke their last words," he continues. "I have watched remarkable men and women take their final breaths. And do you know what they regret the most?" Vanessa swallows hard. "They never long for more money or more fame. They wish they had loved more, forgiven more, cherished life more." The camera pans to the audience. Some have tears in their eyes. Morgan meets Vanessa's gaze, looking deep into her soul. "You ask me what it feels like to be old," he says. "It feels like a privilege denied to many." The audience erupts. Some stand, clapping through their tears. But Morgan isn't finished, and for the first time in her career, Vanessa Clark is speechless. She sits frozen, gripping her cue cards as if they are the only thing anchoring her. The studio is silent. The audience barely breathes. Morgan Freeman's words linger in the air, undeniable and unforgettable. Vanessa lets out a laugh, but it trembles as it leaves her lips. "Well, Morgan, you sure know how to spin a tale. But let's be honest, Hollywood tends to forget about people your age, doesn't it?" A collective gasp spreads through the audience. Morgan exhales slowly and leans back in his chair. He rubs his fingers together, a familiar gesture when he's deep in thought. His gaze settles on Vanessa, not with anger, not with offense, but with something softer, pity. Then he speaks. "My dear, let me tell you a story." The audience leans forward. Morgan Freeman is about to speak. And when Morgan Freeman speaks, you listen. The interview goes on, and Morgan doesn't just respond. He teaches. He shifts the energy of the room with every word. He reminds the world that age isn't a curse, but a privilege. That pain isn't a burden, but a teacher. That true power doesn't come from speaking the loudest, but from knowing when to listen. When Vanessa, for the first time in her career, is left with nothing to say. And in that moment, the world watches her transformation. She isn't humiliated, she is humbled. Finally, she asks, her voice barely above a whisper, "Morgan, if you had just one message to share with the world before you left this earth, what would it be?" Morgan pauses. He glances at Vanessa, then at the crowd, then upward, as if speaking directly to the heavens. Finally, a smile spreads across his face. "My dear," he says gently, "life isn't measured by the years we live, but by the love we give." A sob echoes through the room. Vanessa closes her eyes, letting the weight of his words settle deep within her soul. This isn't just an answer, it's the truth. The studio stands still. Then, one clap, then another, then another. Suddenly, the entire room erupts in applause. Tears stream down faces. Strangers embrace. Some simply stand, pressing their hands over their hearts. Even the camera crew discreetly wipes their eyes, overcome with emotion. Vanessa places a hand on her chest. "Morgan," she whispers, "you've just changed my life." Morgan chuckles, his voice rich and warm. "No, my dear," he says, "you changed it yourself." The applause swells. The energy in the room shifts. This is no longer just a talk show. This is a moment in history, and no one will ever forget it.